You want to buy a business, but you don't want to drain your 401k, refinance your house, or sell off your investments to make it happen. You want to keep your personal risk as low as possible while still building wealth through business acquisition. I'm Ben Kelly, and I own 7 businesses that generate over $850,000 a year in cash flow. And here's the crazy part. I've structured most of these deals with very little of my own money out of pocket. It's because I've used something called creative financing, which is accessible to any normal person who wants to get into business acquisition. Today, I'm going to break down the 3 main creative financing strategies that I actually use. From zero down SBA deals to seller financing, where the sellers of the business are actually happy to be the bank on the deal. Whether you have money tied up in the stock market, you don't want to take out your kids' tuition, or you just want to keep your cash for other opportunities. This video will show you how to buy businesses without writing big checks. Creative financing isn't about being cheap or not having money. It's about being very smart with the money you do have. Think about it like this. If you can make $200,000 a year using the bank's money, why would you tie up $500,000 of your own cash when you could put it elsewhere? It's the same reason why rich people use mortgages to buy a house instead of using their own cash. Borrowing money lets you make more money by letting your cash go and work for you. I've worked with students who are making well over $300,000 a year who still use creative financing so that they don't have to use their own cash to get a deal done. They want to spread out their risk and they want to get a better return. The SBA literally created these programs so that people could buy businesses with little money down. We're not cheating the system. We're using it exactly the way they want us to. When you use creative financing, you're also forcing yourself to buy better businesses because now the bank has to approve the deal as well, and they're going to do their own financial analysis to make sure it's a good deal. Plus, if something goes wrong with the business, you haven't risked your entire life savings compared to if you had put everything into this one deal. The SBA 7A loan is like the foundation of a house. Almost every creative deal that is done is started with getting as much money as possible from the SBA 7A program. Here's how it works. The government is backing the loan of the bank that's giving you the money. That means that the bank is able to give you way more leverage on the loan because the government's behind them saying, don't worry, we'll take care of you. That's what allows buyers to only bring 10% to the deal to get it done. Think about the SBA backing kind of like your rich uncle co-signing a loan you're taking on. The bank, seeing that your rich uncle is co-signing, feels way more comfortable giving you that loan. Right now, SBA rates are hovering between 8 and 10%. Typically, it is prime plus 2%. That might sound like a lot, but it's actually pretty cheap when you're talking about a business that's going to be paying you in excess of 30+% per year in return. You can borrow up to $5 million through the SBA, which covers most businesses out there that are for sale. The trick is that 10% down payment. That is where the creative financing strategies come alive. Instead of writing a check for that 10%, we can use seller notes, or we can find an investor to cover that so we can do this deal with little to no money out of pocket. The best part about SBA loans is that the business cash flow is what's paying back the loan over time. I've helped students do deals where that 10% that's needed for the down payment does not come from their bank account. Seller financing is essentially the seller becoming the bank, meaning you're making payments to the seller over time instead of giving it all at once at closing. Now, this kind of benefits the seller in a couple different ways. One, they're going to make more money because now they're not just getting the principal, but they're also making interest. Also, it's going to save them from a very large capital gain tax bill. Here's where it gets really cool. You can structure a seller note in a way where it even dramatically lowers your own down payment requirement. So typically the SBA requires 10%, but by doing it this way, you can get that down to 5%. And what you do is you take that seller note and you get them to agree that you don't make your first payment on that note for the life of the SBA loan. The SBA loan is over a 10-year term. So that means that you're not making any payments on the seller note for 10 years. Now, if you do that, the bank sees that as really lowering your risk. And so they decide that if you structure the seller note that way, they'll count that 5% towards your 10% required down payment, which means you're saving 5% of the money that needs to come out of pocket. This means that you can buy a $1 million business with only $50,000 needed to buy it. Now, another great thing about seller financing is that the seller is incentivized to see you succeed because you owe them money. They don't want the business to fail because if the business fails, they're not getting their money. And so if you need help or you need a late night call or you need them to come on in and show you something, they're going to come. I usually set up seller notes in a way where at least 10% of the seller note is on full standby for the life of the loan. The remaining seller note, let's say it's 5 or 10% more, I don't start making payments on that for at least 2 years. Now, why am I doing that? Because I want to maximize the cash flow in the first 2 years of business ownership. A lot of things happen when you first buy a business. There's things that are unforeseen. You want to make sure you're protecting as much as your cash flow as possible. The key to getting the seller to agree to this is showing that it's good for both of you. They get more total money, they pay less taxes, and now they have a nice income stream for years to come. Think about it when like someone sells you a car and they let you make payments. Instead, now the business that you just bought is paying those payments for you. This is exactly how Adam, who is one of my students, bought a $4 million marketing agency with zero money out of his own pocket. And he was able to use a 20% seller note. Investor partnerships are like a silent partner who gives you the money, but then they really have nothing to do with the business afterward. Your job is to go and find the business and and make sure it's running properly, making money to pay you and the investor back. This works really well if you have people in your network who have the money to invest. That way you don't have to put your own money up front to close on the deal. So option one, we call this the simple split. This is where the investor is going to put down the 10% down payment or whatever down payment you're able to structure. And because of that, they're going to get a 1.5 to 2x step up in equity. So if they put 10% down, they're going to get 15 to 20% in equity of the business. Option two is the preferred option. Now, this is usually popular among professional investors. This is not usually from people in your own personal network who know you and trust you and wouldn't just take a piece of equity of the deal. Preferred investors want to get their money back as quickly as possible. So the way they structure their deal is that they're going to put down the down payment, but all the money that this business makes over the next year goes back to them. You're not getting paid outside of your salary. They want to get all their initial capital back. And once they do, at that point, the structure changes. They go from getting all the capital back to now just getting back the portion that they own in equity. So for example, if they put 10% down for your down payment, they're going to make that 10% back as fast as possible over the next year or two, depending on the cash flow of the business. During that time also, they're getting an 8 to 12% interest on that money that they put into the business. So not only do you have to pay them back their capital, but you're also paying interest on the capital that they gave you. Now, once you pay it off, they usually switch from having 10% capital injection to now they have 10% of the business. And they get paid just like a normal investor partner would. So there's kind of two parts to that. Now that again is for preferred investors who are professionals who don't know you, they don't really trust you, and so they set up the deal to make sure that they are benefiting for taking that risk. The cool thing about investor partnerships is you're able to solve a problem. The problem is investors want to put their money somewhere where it's going to make a good return, but they don't know where to put it. You're providing the opportunity for where they're going to put their money, and you're also able to get a deal done so that you are building your wealth at the same time. Think of yourself like the person who's doing the hard grunt work of finding the business, getting the financing, getting the whole deal done, and they're able to give you their capital to make the deal happen. In the investor relationship, you're going to have clear delineation of duties. Most of the time, the investor just wants to be a silent partner. They don't want to run the business. They don't care how you run it. All they want is their money back plus the return. You're the one who's going to be making the decisions. You're the one who owns the business. Some of my best students have built entire portfolios where they're not running the businesses. They have other people that they've hired or inherited when they bought the business who are running all the day-to-day. Ben and Andrea actually use one of these methods where they bought a nail salon with another couple, and so they split the down payment and they also split the duties. The most powerful deals are when you take all three of these methods and you're able to put them into one deal. Example, 75% SBA, 20% seller note, and 5% investor money injection. That is 100% and everyone is sharing the risk. Another way is 90% SBA, and on the 10%, you're structuring it with the seller note so that you're getting that 10% down to a 5% injection, and the remainder you can put in yourself or bring an investor to do the deal. You can also set up deals where part of what you owe the seller is turned into equity later on. That's giving them upside while also lowering your monthly payments. The trick in all of this is finding the right mix to satisfy the seller's desires and wants and still making sure that the deal is going to cash flow enough to benefit you. Sometimes sellers will take less money up front because you're giving them better financing terms, which can help both of you. I always tell students to give the seller different options. You're going to see which one motivates them the most, and you're going to use that as your pathway to getting the deal done. Once you've bought your first business, you can use the money that it paid you to buy business number two, and it keeps snowballing from there. Think of it like using rent from one of your rental properties to qualify for a mortgage on another property. Proven business income makes banks more open to lending you more money to do more deals. Cash flow from businesses that are making money can be used to buy more businesses. So you can buy more businesses without even using your own money because money from deal one is financing deal two. Some of my students have bought 3 to 4 businesses in less than 2 years because they use the cash flow from those businesses to continue financing the other businesses after them. The key is managing the money and cash flow from all your different businesses in a very conservative manner. That way, you're never going to worry about running out of working capital, and you know exactly how much you can invest into the next deal. I usually tell people to wait 12 to 18 months before going after deal number 2. So you have time to get things running smooth and make sure that everything is good before jumping into your next deal. This lets you build a bigger and bigger book of business while keeping your personal investment money free for other things. Plus, everything gets way easier after your first deal. You've proven it to the lender, you've proven it to the sellers, the brokers, everyone involved, as well as your investors, that you're trustworthy and you can do this. If you want to learn exactly how to use these creative financing structures and find businesses that work with these deal types, keep listening. In my program, Acquisition Ace, we walk through every single financing strategy, helping you figure out which structure is going to work best for your deal and point you to the lenders that can help you with these creative financing structures. If that sounds up your alley, check out the link in the description below. Thanks for watching and see you in the next video.